Jump right into today's extensive topic.
Okay, so today we are not doing Psalms, but Marcia Melnick and I are going to discuss the CBST Siddur. We'll talk some about the Psalms that are found in the Siddur in a part of an overview of the creation of the CBST Siddur, and we hope that from this session you'll appreciate it more deeply. And as always, if you have questions, put them in the chat right now. We're going to go through a few different things about the Siddur. I'm going to first do a little bit of background, and then we're going to actually look at some pages together. So if you own one in your home, grab it, have it in front of you. We will show the pages on the screen as well, but it'll be fun for you to have the Siddur in front of you if you have one. If you don't have one and you would like to get one, here's my announcement, my infomercial again. Please, we're selling them at the synagogue. If you can't afford it, we have a fund to help everybody get one so that you could have in your hands when we have services the physical book itself. Okay, that's the infomercial. So some of you remember before this Siddur existed, CBST had a different prayer book for every service. That meant on high holidays, for instance, I only have here at home a couple of things to give you as an example. Most of my materials are at the synagogue, but I'll show you to give you some history. So these might look familiar. CBST had books that looked like this. We had 6 or 7 different books that we had to use for the high holidays. So you could see this one was for the evening services for the days of awe. This is for Mincha and Ne'ilah for Yom Kippur. We had a different one for the Torah service, a different one for the morning service and Musaf. So throughout the high holidays, we had to keep collecting and handing out different books. That was true for all of our CBST prayer books. We had a prayer book for Simchat Torah, a prayer book for Yizkor, a prayer book for the morning services that were all made. And you could see they were all, Mark Bieber did all the cutting and pasting, as he loved to tell me that. And different people were involved with the creation of the books at different times. And it was all done on typewriter and cutting and pasting. We all remember those days, right? Of cutting and pasting and using actual typewriters. The Friday night Siddur for many years was called the Blue Shmata because it was a collection of pages put into a binder, and those blue pages, the Blue Shmata, which we have a picture of it. I actually have one at CBST that was Dick Radvin's.
I have one. I can share one, Rabbi.
You could share one so people can see what it
Here's
looked like.
mine, Rabbi.
Oh, there you go. That's what it looked like. And Marcia, can you hold it up so people could see it? Marcia, you have to talk so we could see you. Just say hello.
Can you see it?
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to make you.
Anyway, here it is.
There it is. Just hold it up now, Can you take down the book? Because it's hard. It'll be easier for Marcia, for people.
Okay.
Okay, what Marcia has is the second version. This was after the Blue Shmata. This was the version that was made, that we used for Friday nights at CBST for many, 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 many years. It was first done in 1981, the one that Marcia has. But from 1973 to 1981 was the Blue Shmata, which Harold just showed on the screen. CBST's services were led primarily by a member who had grown up as a Babover Chassid, and he started coming back to Jewish life through CBST, and he led the Friday night services, there was no Siddur. That was from 1973 basically to 1981. I'm compressing it, but the CBST book, which Marcia Melnick and Susan Meyer helped, Ayelet Cohen wrote it, and they were the editors and the producers of this book. There's a chapter about the prayer books at CBST. And my introduction in this Siddur, if you read the whole introduction, I go through the whole history of the prayer life at CBST and liturgy of CBST, which I won't do in great detail now, but it is in this introduction to this book and in Rabbi Ayelet Cohen's book. So in 1981, when the book Friday Night Siddur was done that Marcia just showed you, which was using what was in those days the PhD dissertation binder, remember those? It was done so that pages could be added or subtracted. And in fact, page numbers often jumped 10, 20 page numbers, so that if the idea was that a Siddur was an evolving book, and the idea was that there would be room for adding things and subtracting things and changing, and that change would become an important part of it. Marcia, what are you showing there? Yeah, stay unmuted, Marcia, because you can
Okay.
just jump in.
It says page 211A and 211B
Yep, so the page numbers were all,
for Cox.
the idea was that it would be evolving. It did some radical things in 1981, and it was a mostly male men who did the Siddur at that time. The editors of the 1981 CBST were Yehuda Berger, Mark Bieber, and
David Krause.
David, was he the third editor?
Yeah.
They removed all the masculine references to God in the English, which was pretty radical in 1981. And not many places were approaching issues about gender and God language in Sidurim. So that was a pretty amazing thing, and there were a lot of beautiful things done about the Siddur. They developed a structure that the first blessing of each section would be traditional, and then there would be some interpretive readings to follow based on the theme of that blessing. When we did this Siddur, we maintained that structure. That Siddur was called B'chol Levavcha, and we named the new Siddur the same thing because we saw this as an evolution, not an entirely new thing, but we wanted to be doing this Siddur in the process, in the arc, connected to the past and hopefully a link to the future. So I had what I thought was a very simple idea back in 1997. So the CBSE Siddur had been used since 1981. And there were things we no longer were doing in that Siddur, and there were new things that we were doing. So I had this idea, why don't we just edit it and produce an edited version of the old one? 10 years later, we produced a pilot edition, and in the process, we realized it was a much, 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 much bigger project than we had imagined it was going to be. And for all different reasons, production issues as well as content issues. And we no longer were going to use a typewriter and literal cut and pasting. We were using contemporary production processes. And luckily, we had Marcia Melnick and Susan Meyer, who had spent their career in the book production business. So not the editors and book packaging. You could say, Marcia, what you did. Okay, you say it.
All right. All right. Well,
I'll screw it up.
basically, the two of us are editors, and Susan is an author of many books, but that's aside. Our business was producing and creating books for publishers, sometimes from our own ideas and sometimes, mostly in later years, from their ideas. So we were editors, but we were.
P.S. The romance started when they were both editors at Random House, right?
No, at another publisher, but it's okay. It's okay. We won't go into those details now. Not important.
We love those.
Well, Susan was the editorial director of the magazines at, well, it was part of Billboard Communications. Never mind. And I was the editorial director of an art book publisher at that company, Watson Guptill. And okay, in the fun detail, the first day I arrived, I was taken around the offices and I was introduced to everybody. And I met this person named Susan Meyer. And somebody took me to lunch that day and they said, oh, she's the office lesbian. So that was new. That was good. Okay. All right. Enough of that.
Isn't that a great title to have on your desk? Office lesbian. Wonderful. Yeah. Anyway, we're very happy that you two met then.
Likewise.
Yes. So I had this idea of doing the Siddur, but really didn't know how to do a book. Ayelet Cohen was then an intern, then she was assistant rabbi, then she was associate rabbi, and then she was rabbi with me at CBST. And she is a brilliant liturgist, and many people were involved, including Jack Greenberg and Tasha Calhoun, who is on this call right now. Tasha did all the permissions. It was a huge job because that 1981 beautiful Siddur that CBST did, we did nothing legally. We got 0 permissions. We never asked an author if we could use their work. We took authors' works and we changed them without permission. So I always felt, as rabbi of the synagogue, a little creepy that we were praying from a book that was not appropriately crediting the authors of the various things we were using. So I also had an issue. I really wanted us to have a legal siddur to which we were praying, from which we were praying. That was an aside, and the job of getting permissions was massive. It was not simple at all for many different reasons, not the least of which Yehuda Berger, whom we love very much. In those days of the early 80s, he would just cut and paste, and he never told us where he was cutting and pasting from, of course, because it was, So tracking down even where things were from if we wanted to use them again, how shall we say, wasn't so simple. Okay, that's the background. So 1997, we start working on creating a new Siddur. We thought it was just editing the old one. In 2007, we produced a pilot edition for 1 year that we were then used as a community for a year. Many of you remember, took feedback, had many town hall discussions, got input. And then so Marcia, there's the paperback copy. That's now a collector's item. That was the pilot edition. And then we published this, which is now in the 2nd printing, and we're about to go into the 3rd printing of this book, which I think the hard copy came out in 2007. So a few things, right, Ruth? Ruth Plave says, we were outlaws, so why be legal about copyright? Exactly. You'll be happy to know, Ruth, as the lawyer, this is an entire, we have all legal copyright and permissions for everything that we could possibly do in this Siddur. So you could feel good about using this Siddur now. All right, so let's start by looking at the table of contents. And I think Harold, so are you going to do it from your PDF, Harold?
I can do it from mine. Hold on. I can do it from
So
my
the other thing
PDF.
is, we didn't have a lot of money to do this Siddur, so we couldn't do colors. So Marcia and Susan helped us do something as beautiful as possible without, so it's a 1-color book with different shades. And we're going to go right to the table of contents, which is page 8.
8. Okay. Here we are.
So the first thing we want to go, can we go to the top of that page? So the first thing we wanted to do is to have a table of contents, which you might be surprised, not all Siddurim have. And we wanted it to show the architecture of the whole book and to reflect the structure of the book as we understood what we were trying to accomplish. So then, by the way, what we try to do on Friday nights with the menu is we try to use the same font and the same structure of the menu to reflect back this table of contents so you could see where things come from. So we have the introduction, the why pray, and then I have in here, this is all stuff that I wrote, that is the history of the CBST Friday night Siddurim. I recommend strongly that you read this whole opening section to more deeply understand why pray, what's the importance of a Siddur, and, oh, hold on, Bella, come on, you need to go out. Whoops, here, go. Sorry. And then we have the different sections that indicate where these different pieces are and what the point of that part of the Siddur is. So Hachanat Alev. And we try to make sure there's Hebrew and English everywhere so that we don't just do transliterations and that we create a sense of honor for the for Hebrew, which many liberal Sidurim do less and less of. So these are all elements that are not necessarily traditionally part of a Friday night service. Some elements are done at home. And as you can see, we include Song of Songs, which is the Sephardic tradition to do right before Kabbalat Shabbat. So all of these elements can be home elements, or at CBST, we do them at the Siddur, do them in Shul. And then Kabbalat Shabbat, which is the opening, and now you can see all the Psalms on the left column. You can see all the Psalms that make up Kabbalat Shabbat and where they're located, with Ana B'choach and Lecha Dodi indicated there. So those are, and you see all the numbers of the Psalms, the page numbers, so that you could very quickly see that in the book. Okay, the next page then. So there are two big chunks of Friday night, Kabbalat Shabbat, which is the pre-service service, much like Kol Nidre is the pre-service service for Yom Kippur. And then the service itself starts at Baruch Hu. In other words, for Kabbalat Shabbat, you don't need a minyan. You don't need 10 people. You can do that entirely on your own traditionally. Starting with Baruch Hu, you need a minyan. So Baruch Hu, and again, we show the outline of the service with one or two sentences which gives the meaning of the section, so that if you're a beginner, we wanted this to be beautiful and not overly verbose and wordy, and we didn't want a textbook about prayer. We wanted it to be a prayer book. But you see, we give a theme. So Mari Varavim, we in very few words give the biggest kind of headline of what the theme is of that section. Boundless love, truth and redemption, peace, safety, and life. So that basically you could look at this overview and understand the structure of the service, from which, by the way, that menu every Friday night is drawn. If you could keep scrolling down. And then we show in the Amidah the 7 blessings for the 7 days of the week, the 7 days of creation for the Shabbat Amidah. The same thing, we do very brief translations of each blessing so you see what the essence of the blessing is. Of course, there's much more detail in each blessing, but those are the essence. Page 10. And then we see the end of what the basic service is for Friday nights, which ends with Vayichulu Me'ein Sheva, but we won't go into that right now. Blessings for the community. Now is where the CBST Siddur becomes quite different. Here is where we add all the different special blessings that we do and we choose from on different parts of the service. So you can see what they are. And then after Aleinu, going down, scrolling down, we end with the Kiddush on Friday night. Then to the next page, and then we add things that we do. Then this last huge section of the Siddur are prayers and blessings for every season. So things we do at CBST on a Friday night based on the season, which they're not normally done on Friday nights, and some of them are completely new innovations. Here are some examples, whether they're the Jewish holidays, civil society holidays, LGBT kind of holidays, all different things that we at CBST typically do, which we want in our Siddur, like Lift Every Voice and Sing, like America the Beautiful and God Bless America, things that are not normally found in a Siddur, and some things that are typically found in the Siddur. We also added at the very end of the Siddur on page 266, the service, the Amidah for the festival Amidah. But because we wanted to keep this thin and not heavy, that's in there so that it can be used for a weekday service, but it doesn't have an extensive translation and it doesn't have all of the English and transliteration, but it makes the Siddur a little bit more flexible. So we could use this Siddur, for instance, for an evening service before Purim or for other weekday services. And then we end the entire Siddur with the Tfilat HaDerech, then the other thing that's very unusual about the Siddur, and we're going to look at some pages, is that we list all of our sources, we give all of the credits, and then we have an index, which one of my big complaints about Lev Shalom, both the Siddur and the Machzor, is that it doesn't have an index. So then if you want to find, where can I find Psalm 27? You have to flip through and look for it. At CBST Siddur, you could look up Psalm 27 and find it. If I want to find the mourner's Kaddish, etc. And then we end the whole Siddur with the Aleph Bet, which we'll look at when we get to the, when we move through some of the sections. There is a Hasidic tradition that if you don't know what to pray at a service, if you can't even read Hebrew, if you sit in the service and you study the Aleph Bet during the service, God knows how to put the letters together to make prayer. So it was very important to me to put in the Siddur the Hebrew, the Aleph Bet itself, so that we show that wherever you are in your level of knowledge, if you sit in the service and you just practice identifying an Aleph, that's holy. Okay, so let's now, Marcia, do you want to say something about the issues around layout and transliteration and all of those issues of layout?
Sure, Rabbi. Why don't we get to the pages?
Okay.
Like the first pages, and maybe, I can just point some things out there.
Where do you want me to go? Give me a page number.
I think, in Tasha's 58, 59.
58.
Yeah. You have a spread?
Here's 58.
Oh,
Oh, you
okay.
you want a whole spread?
Yeah, I think Tasha had that. Oh,
I got it. Okay, here we are.
okay. That's super. I just want to say first, I came to the synagogue in 1979 when I was looking for a place to say Kaddish for my father. And I had just met Edie Windsor and Taya Spire, and they said to me, "Oh my God, you have to go to this little shul over in Westbeth. And it's lay-led, it's egalitarian, and it's gay." So we went there, and I loved the services. What did I know? And I've lived through the services and all the changes since that time. So of course, I used the Blue Shmata, I used the Black Book, the binder book. And this project came along at a time in my life when I was really ready to shift gears. I had been working in publishing for 40 years, and I wanted to write a new chapter, and I had other things on my bucket list, we'll say. So how lucky was I that this project came up? Of course, I knew that I could create this book, help create this book, but principally it was an opportunity to learn with the rabbis whom I revered and still do. They are the greatest teachers. So, Rabbi Kleinbaum can talk eloquently about the liturgy, and so could Rabbi Cohn and the other participants. But for me, it was just sort of like being a fly on the wall. My job was to put it all together. Yesterday, I had this funny thought, and it occurred to me that I played the role of the Lamanatseach in Psalm Talk. I was sort of the conductor.
Exactly.
I was really, leading this, I won't say ragtag group because they had full-time jobs, running the synagogue. But here they were wanting to produce this book. And it was, in my life, I started in 2006 to get estimates for a book that was going to be 224 pages. Of course, it morphed into something much more, and to the good. So in 2007, I guess I was really, well, more than that, earlier than that, because the pilot edition was produced in 2007. So I guess it was in 2006 that I started. I can't really remember everything. But anyway, my job was also to hire everybody who would participate in this project, and coordinate their work effort. You just heard a little bit about the changes in the liturgy and who we were. And Rabbi Cohn always talked eloquently, and I don't know if it was you or Rabbi Cohn, but who were we? And in 2 words, we were radical, we were traditional, so my job was really to communicate to a designer, how do we translate that to the page? What does that look like? What does that mean? And also this is a siddur. We wanted it to, be reflective of that tradition, but also not be fuddy-duddy. And also, like, the Siddurim of old. And also to be something that we could use comfortably for a generation, easily, and projecting into the future. We knew that white space was an important component of every page layout. So here we were. I found a designer and she created sample spreads. You take representative pages from the Siddur and you develop sample spreads. And here's a perfect sample spread where at the top of the page, we created a running head. So on the right, you have the Hebrew running head, and on the left, you have the English. And we have to choose a font, a typeface. What would that be? We selected, we looked at a lot of different options, and here we chose Sabon, which is a beautiful typeface on the left. And I'm not 100% sure if it was Corrine or Keter, but,
Yeah, I think it was Corrine that we ended up with, but I
yeah,
can't.
yeah, we looked at a bunch of
We
different
looked at a
ones.
lot.
So the things that were contemporary are very just kind of an elegant and spare layout. But also the kind of the leading, Rabbi, you always like to talk about that.
Yeah.
The leading in the space, in the Hebrew, in the English, Kabbalat Shabbat, there's extra leading and it's all small caps. Small point, but okay. It's part of the look and the feel and the overall design. On this spread, the other thing that you'll see is how we handle the Hebrew and the English, which we decided, of course, was to keep the Hebrew and the transliteration for those among us who were not comfortable reading the Hebrew, and to add very delicate but necessary asterisks to indicate those lines that either the service leader, principally the service leader, would direct folks to. So that was part of it. Anything else?
And the asterisks are the same in the Hebrew or the English and the transliteration.
Yeah.
So
on the left-hand page.
Right. So if I said the double asterisk, it's the same thing, whether you're looking at the English, the transliteration, or the Hebrew, to indicate where we might be.
Also, I think it's interesting to just point out that, of course, Hebrew is much shorter. It's much tighter. It's denser in terms of when you translate. Maybe that's not the right way to say it. But anyway, as you can see, the length of the English is far greater. It's longer. So that created its own, problems in other pages.
But I want to point out, Marcia, to this class in particular. So each psalm is printed to reflect the biblical parallelism of each verse.
Correct.
So now that you understand about biblical parallelism, you can see the intention of how the Hebrew of our psalms exist. And the English is not strict translation, so sometimes it's going for intention, not for strict translation, which now you also should appreciate. But if you look at the Hebrew of this psalm, and there are a lot of psalms in the Siddur, the psalms are, each column is the half, if it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, so of course, as we all know as well. But now you can identify and look for that. And we tried to match it as well as we could in the English as well.
Yeah. And then since we had many readings and throughout the Siddur, we wanted to find a way to set them off. And, we have a very simple little divider, dingbat, or whatever.
I love that word.
Yeah, but we learned about from, I think, I don't know, maybe Ira put up something in the Psalms group, posted something about florons and other kinds. But basically they're all dingbats. Some of them look like leaves and flowers. This one is just very elegant and quiet. And then we also
We looked at many,
attributed
many, and Marcia chose this one, which we
it,
knew it was the
yeah,
perfect one. It's just
with the designer.
with it.
Also, the folios or the page numbers are down at the bottom. They could have been at the top in the running heads. There are a lot of ways to do that, but this was the way we chose.
We had one question that I want to break in with. Whose translations of the Psalms are used here?
So most of the Psalms are originally Yehuda Berger that Rabbi Cohen worked on with him to get them into shape for the Siddur. So I would call her kind of, I mean, we don't credit her, but she really worked very closely with him. So he was the original writer of many of them.
Yeah.
Some of them are, we used a Norm Fisher one in one place, which I don't remember which one. And that's most of the Psalms are mostly Yehuda Berger with Rabbi Cohen's very elegant editing. I wouldn't, editing's the wrong word. She would work with him on the translation.
Okay. You want to show the next spread in 68, 69? What did
So
we?
one of the challenges that we had was whereas the 1981 Siddur did not touch the Hebrew, we felt there were, in some compelling places, good reasons to actually change or work with the Hebrew. We don't have non-binary Hebrew in the Siddur, and we've had a lot of discussions lately. We're thinking of, for the 50th anniversary of the synagogue, coming out with a new edition. The problem with non-binary language is that it's rapidly changing, and how do we include something that won't be out of fashion quickly? There are many, many different systems of non-binary Hebrew. So that's a big question. How do you make something exist in a new way, but without being something that will be out of, in 5 years, won't be used anymore? In the case of Lecha Dodi, we, and this was really Rabbi Cohen's, she kept at this one. In Lecha Dodi, it uses heterosexual love as the example of God's love for humanity. And Rabbi Cohen was the one that insisted that that could not work for us as a synagogue. So she rewrote the sentence which says, Kimsos Chatan v'Kala, like the love of a bridegroom for his bride. She changed the Hebrew to Kimsos Lev Bi'ahava, which means like the love, like the heart that has love, or like the love that is full of. So it's on page. This is on page. What is it? We on? What are we on? I can't see that so well, so I can't.
At 68, 69.
68, 69. But there were many debates in the synagogue about this, and some people were not comfortable with our losing that original heterosexual reference, not because of their preference for the heterosexuality, but not wanting to lose the original. So we did in the bottom have a comment below the line where we do have the original there, so people can see Kimsos Chatan al Kala. But also, we had to be very careful. We didn't want so many comments and so much commentary that it was like a reference book. So we worked very hard figuring out which times we would include a commentary, and we tried to use commentary when we thought it was essential to understand what the intention was from our community's new Siddur, and we thought would be essential for people to have a relationship to it. We were very reluctant to use too much commentary. I personally do not like Siddurim that are with so much commentary that the prayers are kind of besides the point. So that's my personal preference. We also struggled with when to have names on things that are written in the Siddur. So you'll see when there's a translation used by a poet or a congregant, their names are on the page. We had many debates about that. There is a feeling that prayer books are like folk songs. At some point, you stop saying who wrote it. It becomes part of the people. And there was one argument that the names should all be in the back of the book. But what we decided to do is that when it was Adrian Rich or Walt Whitman, it would add to it, to the experience of a poem, knowing who wrote it. And if it was a congregant who wrote it, we would put their name. If, however, it was Rabbi Cohen or me, we would not include our names, partly because it felt weird to be editors and have our names all over the place, and partly because we wrote a lot of the commentaries. So we didn't want our names all over the Siddur. So if you don't see a name affixed to a translation or a commentary, it was written by either Rabbi Cohen or me, and most of them are really Rabbi Cohen, but some are me. So that's the distinction.
Rabbi, there's a quick question. What changes were made between the pilot version that you used for a year and the final version? Was it just
Mostly, well,
edited,
Marcia, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we had meetings, I guess, or onegs, where we had people offering, congregants offering feedback. And I have a note that was, no, let me see. Well, a lot of the feedback was around wanting more poetry, wanting additional readings. There were questions about, oh, we added an oversight, I guess, in the pilot, which was a reading for people with disabilities. There were a lot of comments about the feminine alternatives for Aleinu and for Baruch Hu, and so and for Lecha Dodi. So we revisited those layouts, and we had, I don't know, let me see, what else, Rabbi?
There were a lot of typos that people caught, honestly.
Oh, well, yeah, that was the obvious stuff.
There were typos that we had some problems when the Hebrew got set. It messed up some of the vowels.
Oh my God, the pilot edition, yeah. We also had in Shirat Hayam and in the Aseret Hadibrot, we decided that we were going to add the tropes.
Yeah.
And the vowels and the nikudot.
That was very hard to do.
That was a monster, monster, because it had to be set on a different layer of type. And honestly, for a period of time, there were metegs and tropes and kamatz gadols flying all over the place because nothing aligned. And Jack Greenberg was the best proofreader among all his talents, the best proofreader ever in English and in Hebrew for everything. He was absolutely indispensable in all my years of hiring proofreaders. He was, I mean, I wish I had known him in my publishing business for years. So he was a bear, just attacking every page throughout, not just on those in particular, but as you can imagine, he was indispensable.
Rabbi,
Well, let's look at page 86 and 87, and then I got a couple of things to end with.
okay. Is that in the handout or should I just go there? I'll go there in the, hold on.
I don't remember. I just want to show this outline just so people can appreciate this. Every section starts with the traditional bracha. So in 86, I think it was in the.
I will go there. Hold on.
Okay. So if you have your own Siddur, page 86 and 87. So here's an example. The Ahavat Olam, which is that opening prayer for the Shema section of the Siddur. That's 86. Mm-hmm. The other way, I think. You're going in the wrong way. Yep.
85? Maybe?
So 86 and 87.
Okay.
So if you see, so on page 86, and if you're looking at your Siddur, you see there's a layout. So Ahavat Olam, we start with the traditional Hebrew, the transliteration, and then we have different readings, both on the bottom of the page. So you see David Harrison's name. Here's an example. This is a congregant who contributed this. We started the whole process by inviting the entire congregation to send us readings that we might consider for inclusion. So you go to page 87. This is all the same section, Ahavat Olam, all different interpretive readings that are based on the theme of that blessing and then that section ends. There's a beautiful little dingbat, and then the feminine form of the Chatima, of the ending. Every single blessing in the Siddur follows this format, and that is based on what the original 1981 Siddur did. We changed what those readings were. We added the feminine references to God. Those were pretty radical changes. Should we go to the, so if you have in front of you the page on 292 of your Siddur are all the sources that I mentioned, which identifies every author or every credit that we could track down, every translator. So it's very interesting to flip to the back of the book and to see, you could go by page and see. And what we did, we also made the decision to make this an educational thing, that we, for every translator, every author, we would add a sentence about them. Like on page, you could see page 31, Chaim Nachman Bialek. We explain who he is, his life, a little bit about him to give him the kavod, the honor of more than just a name. So you could learn so much about Jewish history, about Jewish literature, about Jewish prayer by looking through the source. And you could go from the prayer book, and then on page 305 starts the actual credits. This was a monster that Tasha is responsible for. Very, 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 very difficult to do. All the different credits that we got from authors mostly gave them to us for free, not entirely. And then page 313 starts the index, where every prayer in different ways is found in the index, which you can use to look things up, which is very, very useful. And then the final page, 318, is the Aleph Bet that I mentioned. So the idea is you could be sitting in services, not knowing, being distracted, or not knowing, not feeling connected. You could practice reading the Aleph Bet to know better the Hebrew alphabet, knowing this Hasidic story, which I just told. God knows how to put the letters together, even if you don't know.
Can we show either one of the part title pages?
Yes.
Let's go to, what was it? What was he was in?
Main page.
Yeah, it'll be,
Hold on a sec, I'll tell you in a sec.
it's between pages. You want the OZ one?
Yeah.
So that's between pages 157.
Yeah, 157, 158.
Right.
I
It's
think.
actually 158, 159, though they don't
Oh,
have numbers.
right.
But it's after page, there you go. So Marcia, do you want to?
Can you show it as a spread?
I can't.
Okay, all right.
So if you open it up, it looks like this.
Right.
The 2 pages. If everybody looks past page 157 in your Siddur.
So each,
Let's
as
see,
you
maybe
saw,
I may be able to. Oh, yes. Well, not, right,
no,
the pages are in the wrong part. I can't.
it's okay, it's okay.
So it looks like this if you open it up.
Yeah. So each, as you saw in the table of contents, again, we had very clearly delineated the structure of the Siddur, the various parts, the Hachanat Halev and the Kabbalat Shabbat and Ma'ariv, and then Machzor Halev, Machzor Hashanah, sorry, with all the readings and the prayers for the various seasons. This was really a way of just, taking again a moment, a pause, and painting the page. There, what were we going to do? We looked at the thought of artwork, commissioning artwork, illustrations, but none of that seemed appropriate. What seemed appropriate was to take a prayer, a section of a prayer from one of the Psalms in each section.
Here we go.
And,
Yeah.
oh, great.
Beautiful. Yep.
And just paint the page with it. So I always thought we should have a Jeopardy contest. And, okay, so where does this come from in our prayer book?
So what we did is that we picked for each section, and there are multiple divisions, of course. We chose something from a prayer in the coming section. So
But
this,
now that we're all Psalm
right,
mavens,
so many of them are from the Psalms. And this and what do you call this part of the book?
so this is the end papers, and how brilliant were we that we chose basically the words from Tov Lahodot, Ladonai, Psalm 92, which is, at that time, we didn't have our synagogue on 30th Street, but that portion of Psalm 92, it paints the pages of our Siddur and is how we enter our synagogue on 30th Street. And for me, it's everything. I love the Psalm, and I love, that our Siddur, every time we open it, opens with Tov Lahodot.
So if you go to the beginning of every section in the Siddur, and we wanted it to be beautiful, that if you didn't read Hebrew, this would just look like a beautiful graphic. It just
Yeah.
looks like a gorgeous graphic. If you did know Hebrew, you would try and read it. And if you did know the prayers, you could identify it. And part of what we want to do is make sure there are always different levels of access, both for the very beginner, but also for somebody who really understands prayer will have a different aha moment. So here, this is also from different Psalms. I'm not going to give it away. You could all take this time to look
Figure
through
it
your
out.
own Siddur. And by the way, this is also, so we could only afford one color. So we couldn't use any color in the Siddur. So this is, what do you call this?
Okay, so this is a screen of black, basically. It's like maybe 70% or 80%. I don't know what we ended up with, but we looked at it. And I just want to say there were so many people that contributed, but when it came time to do the printing of the book, Harriet Beckman, who's obviously a member and Ruth Plav's partner, was the one who found the printer and whom we worked with in order to create this beautiful edition of Siddur, our new edition of Siddur B'chol Bavcha, with foil stamping. When we went and created a hardcover deluxe edition, we had a padded cover, we had a ribbon in it, all the bells and whistles, so that could be given out as a gift for special occasions. Anything else, Rabbi?
Well, there's much, but we're running out of
There's
time.
a lot to say. There's a lot
to say, and I know this has been a lot. I hope will help you deepen your relationship to the Psalms of the Siddur and the Siddur itself. And happy to take questions offline, or maybe if people want to put them in the chat, maybe tomorrow at 9:45 or so, I can answer any of those. Are any of the special editions? No, we've sold out of the leather copy. Those are all sold out. This is if you look on the binding, you'll know. So if there's one little thing there, that's the first edition. If there are two, it's the second printing, and we're about to do a third.
No, if there's nothing, it's the first edition, and if it's a little dot, it's the second. And that's my major contribution to the second,
Okay,
so that we would know which version it is.
excellent. Thank you, Anne. So we're not. So there's blank is one is two. We're about to print a few more because we've run out. Another edition without a lot of changes to it. There'll be a few changes, but then we're hoping for the 50th anniversary of the synagogue, we might make. We're not sure, or at least we'll just print another big printing with, some leather and some beautiful. We don't know yet. Who knows? We're making it up as we go along.
Well,
So thank you to Harriet Beckman, who did so much for this Siddur in the printing, to Marcia, and to Anne, who helped in the post printing, second printing. And we now only have I think we have about 100 left or something like that. That's why we're going to print some more. And please make sure this way, if you want to collect them all, you'll be able to look and see which edition you have.
And there is an inscription inside for the major contribution that enabled us to do a second printing and feel comfortable with the fundraising part of that.
It's a very expensive process to do a book, if folks.
Right.
And you have to put all of the money out at once. You don't get to.
Not exactly. I mean, part of it is you pay for upfront cost, that would be a course, but anyway, the plant costs, the things that don't, are now non-recurring. The paper printing and binding are the things that recur when you reprint, but you know, after your first printing, you've covered all your costs. So
Yeah,
we
but I
had to
mean,
raise a lot of money for the first printing. The second printings, still, of course, we needed to pay for those, but the only cost at that point was the PP&B.
Yeah. So the original committee, just so that you know, was myself and Rabbi Cohen, Yehuda Berger, Jack Greenberg, and Marcia Melnick, and Tasha Calhoun, whose work really made it possible. Without Tasha, we could not have pulled this off. And then, as we said, Harriet Beckman was a huge, huge help in actually getting the thing printed, which is all of these. There are many different pieces, and Harriet and Marcia did everything as volunteers, and so did, of course, Jack Greenberg and Yehuda Berger.
Wow. So Rabbi, I think we have to wrap it up. Tomorrow we start Psalm 16, if I am correct.
Psalm 16 tomorrow, and I'm going to talk, yes, I'm going to do a little introduction to Psalm 16 tomorrow.
Great. And I sent the, if you check your email, everybody, you have your texts. All right. Thank you, Marcia, Rabbi. This was really unbelievable. The amount of time and thoughtfulness. It's like sitting with the people who put together the King James Bible. We can ask you questions and show the PDFs. Really. I'm going to go back and read it again. I have held this Siddur in my hand for years, and I never knew many of the things that you shared with us today. It is such an amazing accomplishment. All right, everybody. Tomorrow.
Thank you.